an influential man, an innocent promise and an old well hidden in the bushes. But no one imagined that a wild horse would be the only one to sense what was about to happen. The sun rises lazily over the mountains of Broken Ridge Springs, painting the blue-windowed houses with gold. The smell of fresh bread from Mr. Wilson's bakery mingles with the fragrance of jasmine adorning the gardens. In the town square, ladies chat on wooden benches while watching children run around the gazebo. It's another seemingly ordinary day in this small Colorado town where time appears to move in slow motion. In the house next to the main church, Martha Wilson wakes before the first bell rings. Her wrinkled fingers adjust the shawl on her shoulders as she walks to her granddaughter's room. Clara, a 7-year-old girl, sleeps peacefully, her brown hair spread across the pillow like an open fan. "Clara, my angel, it's time to get up," whispers Martha, stroking the girl's hair. Clara opens, her eyes which remain fixed on some invisible point. Since birth, darkness has been her constant companion, but this has never prevented her from seeing the world in her own way. "Good morning, Grandma," she responds with a smile. "I dreamed of a white horse running free through the mountains." Martha smiles. Clara's visions often transcended the limits of common imagination. The girl rises with ease, her bare feet finding their way across the wooden floor without hesitation. Her small fingers know every corner of the house, every texture, every distance. Meanwhile, on the other end of town, the Caldwell mansion comes to life with the arrival of its heir. Oliver Caldwell, 35, parks his imported car at the entrance of the property. He's back after years of living in New York and abroad. His posture is elegant, his gestures calculated, his impeccable smile hiding an ambition that boils within. "Welcome back, sir," says Josephine, the housekeeper who watched him grow up. "How's our dear town, Josephine? Still stuck in time?" he asks with a tone that mixes disdain and nostalgia. "Things around here don't change that quickly." "But there's news. The mayor's been talking about progress, you know. And there's that girl—" "What girl?" interrupts Oliver, handing his suitcase to the driver. "Martha Wilson's granddaughter. They say she can predict things that she senses, what others can't see. She's blind, poor thing, but seems to see what no one else can." Oliver raises an eyebrow, suddenly interested. His return to Broken Ridge Springs was no coincidence. There was important business to attend to, land to acquire, people to convince, and now unexpected information about a girl with special gifts. That same morning at Mr. Wilson's store, the buzz is constant. The old merchant, with his 70 years and even older memories, counts coins behind the counter when the door opens. "Look, who's back to our ridge?" he exclaims, adjusting his glasses. "The Caldwell boy, now a successful businessman." Oliver enters with the studied charm of someone who knows the effect he causes. "Mr. Wilson, you're still the same. How long has it been?" "I came to see how things are around here. I heard there's land for sale near the spring." The old shopkeeper scratches his head. "There is, but you know how it is. Land around these parts has history, has secrets. Not just anyone can buy it." Oliver smiles, concealing his irritation. "Money solves most secrets, don't you think?" Chapter. That moment, the bell above the door rings again. Clara enters hand in hand with Martha. The girl wears a simple dress, her hair tied in a braid, her feet in worn sandals. There's something about her presence that makes conversations pause for a moment. "Good morning, Mr. Wilson," Clara says in a melodious voice. "I brought the herbs you asked for your tea." Her small fingers slide across the counter until they find the small cloth bag she carries. Her unfocused eyes seem to scan the environment, inexplicably stopping in Oliver's direction. "We have a visitor today, someone who has come from far away," she says, without anyone having informed her of the stranger's presence. "If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue." Oliver Caldwell couldn't hide his startlement at hearing Clara's words. How could that child know he came from far away? The coincidence disturbed him more than he would like to admit. "You must be Clara," he approached, regaining his composure. "I've heard about you. I'm Oliver Caldwell." "Your voice has the color of autumn," she replied, slightly tilting her head. "It's beautiful, but it hides something." Martha, sensing the discomfort that filled the room, gently placed her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. "Clara has a special way of getting to know people, Mr. Caldwell. Don't take it the wrong way." Oliver forced a smile that no one, except perhaps Clara, perceived as false. "Not at all. I find it fascinating. I came precisely to reconnect with the people here." Mr. Wilson, feeling the tension, intervened. "Mr. Caldwell is interested in the Springlands, Martha." The old woman's expression changed subtly, a shadow crossing her wrinkled gaze. "Those lands have history, young man. They're not just a piece of ground to be traded." "Grandma knows all the stories," added Clara innocently. "She told me about the promise you made to her, Mr. Wilson." The old shopkeeper lowered his eyes, visibly uncomfortable. Oliver, however, saw an opportunity. "What promise would that be?" he inquired with feigned disinterest. "Oh, just old folks' things." Mr. Wilson changed the subject. "Nothing that would interest a businessman like yourself." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of other customers, and Oliver politely said goodbye, but not before casting a final intrigued look at Clara. There was something about that girl that deeply troubled him. Upon returning to the Caldwell mansion, Oliver went straight to his father's old office. The dust accumulated on books and documents showed that the place had remained untouched for years. With determination, he began searching through drawers and shelves. "What are you looking for, sir?" Josephine appeared at the door with a coffee tray. "History, Josephine. I'm looking for history," he replied without taking his eyes off the papers. The housekeeper placed the tray on the desk and observed her boss with curiosity. "If it's history you need, you should talk to Mr. Thompson. Nobody knows the secrets of this land better than him." Oliver paused for a moment, an idea forming in his mind. "Thompson still lives in that cabin near the creek?" "Yes, sir. He's still there, with his books and plants." That same afternoon, Oliver drove to the outskirts of town. The dirt road wound through verdant hills until it reached a modest wooden cabin. Beside it, a small creek sang softly, cradling the silence of the place. Mr. Thompson, a man of nearly 90, was sitting in a rocking chair on the porch. His astute eyes followed the visitor's approach without showing surprise. "I knew you would return one day, Edward's son," he said in a hoarse voice. "The land calls to the Caldwell blood." Oliver felt a shiver run down his spine. How did everyone in this town seem to know more than they should? "I need to understand what's in those Springlands that my father wanted so badly." The old man smiled, revealing few teeth. "It's not what's in the lands, young man. It's what's beneath them." Meanwhile, in the house next to the church, Clara sat at the old piano in the living room. Her small fingers glided over the yellowed keys, producing a melody that seemed to come from nowhere. Martha observed her granddaughter with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "Grandma," Clara called, without stopping playing. "Why does the man with the autumn voice want the Springland so badly?" Martha sighed, approaching the piano. "Some people only see value where they can profit, my love. They don't understand that some things are priceless." "Like the water that sings beneath the earth?" asked Clara with wisdom beyond her years. The grandmother sat beside her granddaughter, lovingly running her hand through her hair. "Exactly, like the water that sings." In Mr. Thompson's cabin, Oliver listened attentively to the old man's words. "Your father knew those lands hold the largest pure water aquifer in the region. Whoever controls the water controls the future. But there's something he never understood." "What?" Oliver leaned in anxiously. "The water there belongs to no one. There's an old deed made when this town was not even a dream that protects that source for everyone's use." "And where is this deed?" The old man's eyes gleamed with mischief. "Ask the girl who sees without eyes. She will know." Oliver left the cabin with more questions than answers. At the wheel of his luxury car, he planned his next step. If there was a document preventing the purchase of those lands, he needed to find it. And if Clara was the key to it, then he would win the girl's trust, whatever it took. On the other side of town, in the pastures that bordered the forest, an unusual event was stirring the residents. Old Jack, a rancher with calloused hands and a gentle heart, contemplated with amazement the animal that had appeared after the previous night's storm. a majestic white horse, imposing in stature with eyes as black and deep as the night. The key. Morning sun illuminated the white coat of the horse, making it seem almost unreal against the intense green of the pasture. Old Jack had never seen such a beautiful animal in all his 60 years of life. He approached carefully, expecting the defensive reaction common in wild horses, but to his surprise, the animal remained steady, just observing him with those deep, black eyes. "Where did you come from, partner?" muttered Old Jack, extending his calloused hand. The horse whinnied softly, as if answering the question, and lowered its head, allowing the touch. An immediate connection was established between the two, something the old rancher couldn't explain with words. "I'm going to call you Silver," he decided, noticing how the white coat gleamed under the sunlight. "Seems like you were waiting for me." In the days that followed, news about the mysterious white horse spread throughout Broken Ridge Springs. Some said it was an omen, others that it had escaped from some distant ranch. Theories multiplied, but Silver remained an enigma, accepting only Old Jack's proximity. At Mr. Wilson's grocery store, the white horse was the topic of the moment. "They say it appeared after that strong storm, as if it had come with the lightning," commented Mrs. Miller while choosing tomatoes. "Horses like that don't appear out of nowhere," retorted Mr. Jenkins. "Must have escaped from some luxury ranch." Oliver, who was in the establishment to buy cigarettes, perked up his ears upon hearing the conversation. "What horse are you talking about?" he asked, feigning disinterest. "A magnificent animal that appeared in Jack's pastures," explained Mr. Wilson. "White as snow, with a bearing I've never seen the like of. Jack has already named it Silver." "Interesting," murmured Oliver, storing the information like a card up his sleeve. Meanwhile, in the house next to the church, Clara was restless. Since early morning, she had felt something different in the air, a kind of call she couldn't explain. "Grandma, can we go to the market today?" she asked after lunch. Martha found the request strange. The market only happened on Saturdays, and it was still Wednesday. "It's not market day today, dear." "I know, but I wanted to visit Old Jack. I dreamed about him last night," insisted Clara, with that gentle determination that was impossible to refuse. The grandmother sighed, accustomed to her granddaughter's seemingly random requests that, in the end, always proved significant. "All right, we can stop by after you finish your lessons." Clara smiled, satisfied, and went back to sliding her fingers over the raised dots of the book in front of her. She had learned Braille with surprising ease, and now devoured stories with the same enthusiasm with which other children explored the visible world. On the other side of town, Oliver was in his office, analyzing old maps of the region. Mr. Thompson's information confirmed his suspicions. The spring lands harbored a treasure much more valuable than gold. Pure and abundant water, increasingly rare in a world of scarce resources. If he could acquire that land, he could control the water supply for the entire region, transforming small Broken Ridge Springs into a hub of development and profit. But, for that, he needed to find and eliminate that old deed mentioned by the old man. And for some reason he didn't fully understand yet, little Clara seemed to be the key to this mystery. The sound of knocking on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he ordered, quickly putting away the maps. Josephine appeared with her coffee tray. "Sir, there's a man outside wanting to speak with you. Says it's about business." "Send him in." Moments later, a middle-aged man wearing a simple suit and carrying a worn briefcase entered the office. He introduced himself as Richard Mills, a former employee of the old town hall, now retired. "I heard you're interested in the spring lands," he said straightforwardly after the formal introductions. Oliver indicated the chair in front of him. "And what would a retired employee have to say about that?" Richard opened his briefcase, removing some yellowed documents. "I worked in the municipal archives for 30 years. I know every paper that passed through there, and I know you're not the first Caldwell to try to buy those lands." Oliver's interest was palpable now. "Continue." "Your father tried several times, but always ran into the same stone. An old document, a kind of community pact signed by the town's founders. And where is this document?" Richard smiled, revealing yellowed teeth. "That's the interesting part. It mysteriously disappeared many years ago. Some say it was Martha who hid it, to protect it from ambitious people. Oliver felt a twinge of irritation, but maintained a calm countenance. How much do you want to help me find it? The former. Employee shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I didn't come to sell information, Mr. Caldwell. I came to warn you. There are things in this town that shouldn't be messed with, forces that shouldn't be challenged. Superstitions, dismissed Oliver, with a gesture. We're in the 21st century. You don't understand, it's not just people protecting that spring, it's as if the land itself had a will of its own. The conversation was interrupted when Josephine announced that lunch was served. Richard said goodbye, politely declining the invitation to stay. Before leaving, however, he left a final warning. Be careful with the blind girl, Mr. Caldwell. They say she can see more than all of us combined. That afternoon, as the sun began its descent on the horizon, Martha and Clara walked along the dirt path that led to old Jack's pasture. The girl firmly held her grandmother's hand, but her steps were sure, as if she knew the path by heart. Upon arriving, they found the old rancher sitting on a fallen log, observing the white horse that grazed peacefully a few meters away. Look who's come to visit us, Silver, said old Jack upon seeing the two approaching. Martha and little Clara. Upon hearing the horse's name, Clara released her grandmother's hand, taking a step forward. Silver, she repeated with a smile. He has a name of light. The horse raised its head at the sound of the girl's voice, and, to the amazement of Martha and old Jack, began to walk toward them. Normally skittish with strangers, Silver approached Clara as if he had known her for a long time. The horse stopped a few inches from Clara, its soft breathing making the girl's hair sway slightly. With a naturalness that impressed the adults. Present, Clara extended her hand, finding the animal's soft muzzle without hesitation. He's telling me secrets, whispered the girl with a smile. Old Jack and Martha exchanged meaningful looks. Something special was happening there, something that transcended common understanding. What's he saying, my little one? Asked old Jack, approaching carefully so as not to startle the animal. Clara tilted her head, as if really listening to words inaudible to others. He came from far away, but at the same time from near. He came to protect the singing water. Martha felt a shiver run down her spine. The singing water was how the elders referred to the spring, source of the purest water in the region. Clara, dear, I think it's getting late, she said suddenly, anxious to return home. But the girl seemed hypnotized by the contact with Silver. Her small fingers slid through the white mane of the animal, which remained motionless as if enjoying the touch. He knows the way, Grandma. He knows all the ways. Old Jack observed the scene with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. In his long years dealing with animals, he had never witnessed such an immediate and profound connection. It was as if horse and girl shared their own language, incomprehensible to others. Come visit Silver whenever you want, little one, offered the rancher. Seems like you two have a lot to talk about. On the way back home, Clara remained silent, a slight smile on her lips. Martha, on the other hand, seemed worried, her thoughts agitated like leaves in the wind. Grandma, the man with the autumn voice is going to visit us tomorrow, Clara said suddenly, breaking the silence. Martha stopped, surprised. How do you know that, Clara? Journey, Silver told me, the girl answered simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The grandmother didn't have time to question further as they soon arrived home, but Clara's words continued to echo in her mind for the rest of the day. The next morning, as predicted by the girl, Oliver Caldwell appeared at the door of the house next to the church. He brought with him an elegantly wrapped box and his best smile. Good morning, Mrs. Wilson. I hope I'm not disturbing. Are you so early? The old woman observed the visitor with suspicious eyes. What brings you here, Mr. Caldwell? Please call me Oliver. I heard your granddaughter has a special talent for music and I'd like to give her something, he explained, lifting the box. At that moment, Clara appeared behind her grandmother. It's a storybook in Braille, said the girl before Oliver could reveal the contents of the package. The businessman couldn't hide his surprise. How? The smell of new paper and the thicker than normal pages, explained Clara with a smile. I can sense it from afar. Martha couldn't help but notice how the rational explanation seemed to relieve Oliver, as if he preferred to believe that Clara just had very sharp senses, not an inexplicable ability to know things. "It's very kind of you, Mr. Oliver," said Martha, stepping aside to allow the visitor to enter. "Would you like some coffee?" While her grandmother prepared the drink in the kitchen, Clara sat on the sofa in the small living room, her fingers already anxiously exploring the gift after opening it. "How did you know about my taste for music?" she asked, turning the pages with delicacy. Oliver, seated in the armchair beside her, smiled. "I have my contacts in town. Someone mentioned your talent at the piano." "It was Mr. Wilson, wasn't it? He always talks too much," Clara laughed, her unfocused eyes seeming to fix on a point beyond the businessman. "But you didn't come here just to give me a present." The girl's frankness momentarily disconcerted Oliver. "You're very perceptive, Clara. You're right. I came because I'm interested in learning more about the history of this town, and I heard your grandmother knows many old stories." Clara closed the book, her countenance suddenly serious. "You want to know about the spring?" It wasn't a question, but a statement. Oliver felt a chill down his spine. How could that child read his intentions so clearly? "Among other things," he replied, trying to maintain his composure, "I'm a businessman, but I also appreciate local history and traditions." Clara tilted her head as if she could see through his words. "The Singing Water has many stories, some happy, others not so much." Martha returned with a tray, interrupting the conversation. She served coffee for Oliver and milk with cinnamon for Clara. "Your granddaughter is truly extraordinary, Mrs. Wilson," commented Oliver, taking a sip of the drink. "So young and so wise." The grandmother smiled with contained pride. "Clara has always been special. Since she was little, she seems to understand things that are beyond the reach of most." "Grandma, can I show Oliver my rock collection?" asked Clara, surprising both her grandmother and the visitor. Martha hesitated but eventually agreed. Clara rose with agility and extended her hand toward Oliver. "Come with me. They're in my room." The businessman followed the girl down the narrow hallway to a small room painted light blue. On the windowsill, a collection of stones of various sizes and shapes was meticulously organized. "This is my favorite," said Clara, picking up a crystalline stone with bluish veins. "Grandma says it came from the spring, brought by my grandfather, when they were young." Oliver took the stone in his hands, examining it with interest. "It's very beautiful." "It's not just beautiful," corrected Clara. "It's special. Feel how cold it is. Even on the hottest days, it maintains this temperature. It's as if it keeps a bit of the water inside it." The businessman returned the stone, intrigued by the girl's knowledge. "Clara, do you know if there's an old document about the spring? Something like an agreement or a deed?" The girl remained motionless for a few moments, her face turned toward the window as if contemplating the landscape she couldn't see. "Paper keeps secrets, but water knows the truth," she responded enigmatically. "Silver knows where the path is." Oliver frowned, frustrated with the abstract response. But before he could insist, Martha appeared at the door. "Clara, it's time for your studies. Mr. Caldwell, thank you for the visit and the gift, but my granddaughter has a routine to follow." The businessman understood the cue and politely said, "Goodbye." Upon leaving the house, however, his mind was buzzing. Clara's enigmatic words seemed to contain important clues. Silver knows where the path is. The white horse. Was there a connection between the mysterious animal and the document he was looking for? If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. The following days witnessed a subtle change in Oliver Caldwell's behavior. The businessman, previously distant and formal, began to make himself increasingly present in the routine of the small town. He attended Sunday masses, frequented the square on Sunday afternoons, distributed smiles and greetings like someone sowing seeds in fertile ground. But it was in Martha's house that he invested his greatest attention. Almost daily he appeared, with some gift for Clara. Braille books, imported sweets, even a small radio that picked up stations from distant cities. His strategy was clear and meticulous. to win the girl's trust and, through her, unravel the mystery of the lost document. Martha observed everything with growing mistrust. Raised in the countryside, she had the sharp instinct of those who learn to read human intentions through small gestures. Something in Oliver's excessive kindness sounded false, like an out-of-tune note in a perfect melody. "Clara, don't you find all this interest from Mr. Caldwell strange?" she asked one afternoon, while the girl played with a music box gifted by the businessman. "He's afraid, Grandma," replied Clara, without interrupting her exploration of the object with her sensitive fingers. "Afraid of not getting what he wants, afraid that others will discover his secrets. It's a fear that makes noise inside him." The response, as always enigmatic, did not reassure Martha, but she knew there was no point in insisting. Clara saw the world in her own way, sharing only fragments of her unique perception. Meanwhile, in his office at the Caldwell mansion, Oliver gathered information like pieces of a complex puzzle: old maps of the region, historical records, conversations with elderly residents. Everything pointed to the existence of a document that legally prevented the commercial exploitation of the spring. "You're obsessed with this story," observed Josephine while serving coffee. "Just like your father." Oliver raised his eyes from the papers, irritated by the comparison. "The difference, Josephine, is that my father failed. I will not fail." The housekeeper shook her head, leaving in silence. She knew, well, that determined look of the Caldwells, the same she had seen in Oliver's father years ago, shortly before the tragic accident that claimed his life. That night, heavy rain fell on Broken Ridge Springs. Lightning cut the sky like luminous cracks, and the noise of thunder made the windows tremble. In her bed, Clara remained awake, listening attentively to something beyond the storm. "Grandma," she called when Martha came to check if she was all right. "Silver is calling. He needs to show me something." The grandmother sat on the edge of the bed, caressing her granddaughter's hair. "Not now, my dear. It's night, it's raining hard. Tomorrow we'll visit old Jack and the horse." Clara shook her head, insistent. "It's not at the pasture. Silver is at the spring. He found the way." Martha felt her heart tighten. The spring was in a remote area, difficult to access even on good weather days. "How do you know this, Clara?" "I can hear his hooves in the water, Grandma, and I can hear the water singing louder, as if it were happy with the visit." Before the conversation could continue, a noise at the front door startled both of them. Someone was knocking urgently, despite the late hour and the torrential rain. Martha found a soaked and breathless old Jack on the threshold. "Sorry for the hour, Martha, but Silver is gone. He broke through the fence and disappeared in the storm." "I've never seen him so agitated." Clara appeared behind her grandmother, still in her nightgown. "He went to the spring, old Jack," she said with conviction. "He's taking care of the singing water." The old rancher looked at the girl with amazement. "How can you be so sure, little one?" "Because he told me," Clara answered simply, "just like he told me that the man with the autumn voice is also there." The girl's words fell like a stone in still water, creating waves of concern. Martha and old Jack exchanged alarmed looks. "Oliver Caldwell?" asked old Jack, his voice low so only Martha could hear. "I fear so," replied the old woman. "Clara has this connection with the horse. If she says both are at the spring, then they are." The rain continued to pound, but the concern was greater than the discomfort. They quickly decided that old Jack would go to the spring to check, while Martha would stay with Clara. "Be careful, Jack. If Oliver is really there, he must have a shady reason." The rancher nodded, adjusting his soaked hat. "The spring is sacred to our people, Martha. I won't let anything bad happen to it." After old Jack departed into the storm, Martha tried to convince Clara to return to bed, but the girl was agitated, moving around the house as if looking for something. "Grandma, I need to show you something," she said, heading with sure steps to the old chest in the corner of the living room. Martha observed, intrigued, as Clara opened the chest and, without hesitation, felt around to the bottom, where she retrieved a package wrapped in waxed cloth. "How?" began the old woman, surprised. That package contained important family documents kept there for years. She had never shown its hiding place to her granddaughter. "Grandpa showed me in a dream," explained Clara, extending the package. "He said the time has come to protect the water again." With trembling hands, Martha opened the wrapping. Inside, a document yellowed by time, with signatures of various town founders, established the spring as community heritage, prohibiting its commercial exploitation by any individual or company. It was the document that Oliver had been searching for so earnestly. "Clara, how did you know?" The girl smiled, her unfocused eyes seeming to contemplate a world that only she could see. "The spring told its secrets to Silver, and Silver told them to me. Now we need to tell the world before it's too late." At that exact moment in the spring area, Oliver Caldwell struggled against the rain and mud, his flashlight precariously illuminating the path. He had received an anonymous call informing him that the document he was looking for was hidden in a cave near the spring. The water bubbled forcefully due to the rains, creating a constant noise that mingled with the sound of the storm. Oliver advanced determinedly, ignoring the branches that whipped his face and the mud that sucked at his expensive boots. Suddenly, a powerful whinny cut through the night. Turning abruptly, Oliver saw the white, imposing silhouette of Silver standing on a rocky elevation, his black eyes fixed on him as if seeing into his soul. The white horse remained motionless, its ethereal figure contrasting with the violence of the storm. Oliver felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold rain. There was something almost supernatural about Silver's presence, something that defied his pragmatic view of the world. "Get out of my way!" he shouted, trying to scare the animal with abrupt gestures. Silver didn't move. His black eyes remained fixed on the businessman as if they could see beyond his polished facade. Oliver hesitated, divided between irritation and an inexplicable fear. He had never been superstitious, but that horse seemed to challenge all his certainties. Going around a large rock, he decided to follow another path, ignoring the presence of the animal. The spring was more turbulent than normal due to the rains. The crystalline water gushed forcefully between the rocks, creating small waterfalls that descended to form the creek that supplied the entire region. Nearby, partially hidden by vegetation, was the entrance to the cave mentioned in the anonymous call. Oliver advanced with difficulty, his feet sinking into the mud. The flashlight precariously illuminated the way, creating ghostly shadows on the rocky walls. The sound of water echoed, amplified by the natural acoustics, creating a hypnotic symphony. "It must be here somewhere," he muttered to himself, examining the walls for some hiding place or mark. His fingers were sliding across the cold stone when he heard Silver's whinny again, now closer, urgent. Turning abruptly, he saw the horse standing at the entrance of the cave, blocking his exit. "What do you want?" he shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. In response, another sound reached his ears, footsteps approaching. Old Jack appeared. Beside the horse soaked by the rain, his serious countenance illuminated by occasional lightning. "What are you doing here, Mr. Caldwell?" asked the rancher, advancing cautiously into the cave. Oliver tried to maintain his composure, forcing a smile. "The same as you, I imagine. Checking if the storm hasn't caused damage to the spring. It's a town heritage, after all." Old Jack shook his head, incredulous. "Don't insult my intelligence. We know why you're so interested in the spring. Your father had the same ambition. Control the water to control the region." Oliver's smile disappeared, replaced by a hard expression. "My father was a misunderstood visionary. This town could have prospered under his leadership, but you preferred to remain stagnant, stuck in obsolete superstitions and traditions." "Traditions that protected the water and land for generations," retorted Old Jack, coming closer. "The spring isn't just a resource, Mr. Caldwell. It's the soul of this community." Oliver laughed, a dry sound that echoed sinisterly through the cave. "Country poetry. What this town needs is development, jobs, infrastructure, and I can provide all." "That at the cost of water that belongs to everyone?" questioned Old Jack, his eyes tired but firm. The conversation was interrupted by an unexpected sound. Clara's crystalline voice calling from outside the cave. "Old Jack? Oliver? Are you there?" Both men turned, astonished, to the entrance. Clara was there, completely soaked, her nightclothes clinging to her small body. Beside her, Martha tried to protect her from the rain with a shawl. "Clara!" exclaimed old Jack, running to the girl. "What are you doing here? It's dangerous." "Silver called me," the girl replied with simplicity. "He said the water is agitated, that it needs help." Oliver observed the scene with a mixture of confusion and irritation. How could that child get there in the middle of the storm? And why did she talk about the horse as if the animal could communicate? "This is ridiculous," he finally said. "The girl is delusional and you feed these fantasies. Don't you see the harm you do to her?" Martha stepped forward, her normally gentle face hardened by indignation. "The only harm here is your greed. Mr. Caldwell, we came to bring this." She extended the document that Clara had found in the chest. Oliver immediately recognized it, the community pact that prevented the commercial exploitation of the spring. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice betraying his surprise. "It has been kept in our family for generations," explained Martha. "My husband was the last guardian, and before departing this world, he entrusted me with the responsibility." Clara took a step forward, her movements surprisingly sure for a blind child on irregular terrain. "The water chooses its guardians, Oliver. It chose my family a long time ago. It chose old Jack, and now it has chosen Silver." The businessman felt frustration growing. All his plans, all his efforts, threatened by a blind child, an old rancher, and a horse. "This is madness," he exclaimed, advancing toward Martha to take the document. At that moment, Silver whinnied again, a powerful sound that seemed to make the cave itself tremble. Clara extended her hand in the direction of the animal, as if she could see it. "He says, you don't understand, Oliver. Water isn't for possessing, it's for sharing." "Enough absurdities," shouted the businessman, completely losing his composure. With an abrupt movement, he snatched the document from Martha's hands and retreated into the interior of the cave. "Give that back," demanded old Jack, advancing. "Or what?" challenged Oliver, retreating further. "You'll stop me? An old man, an old woman, and a blind child?" It was then he realized he had retreated too far. The ground beneath his feet was no longer firm, but slippery due to the water that was accumulating. One misstep, and he felt himself falling toward a deep pool formed by the spring inside the cave. Clara screamed, a sharp sound that cut through the air. "Be careful." Too late. Oliver felt the cold water envelop him, the document slipping from his fingers. For a terrifying moment, the strong current of the spring pulled him down, away from the light. The icy water filled his lungs as he struggled to return to the surface. When all seemed lost, he felt something firm beside him. He instinctively grabbed onto it, and to his surprise, his fingers found Silver's mane. The horse had entered the water to save him. The seconds that followed seemed to stretch into eternity. Oliver, clinging to Silver's mane, felt the power of the animal as it swam against the current, guiding him to safety. The water, previously threatening, now seemed to make way for the white horse, as if recognizing its presence. When they finally reached the shore, Oliver fell exhausted, coughing and shivering. Old Jack and Martha ran to help him, while Clara remained motionless, her face turned toward the spring as if listening to something beyond the reach of others. "The document," muttered Oliver between coughs. "It fell in the water." "Don't worry about that now," replied Martha, extending her shawl to cover him. "We need to get you out of here." Silver shook his wet coat and approached Clara. The girl extended her hand, touching the animal's damp muzzle. A serene smile illuminated her face. "He saved the Autumn Voice man," she said. "The water wanted to show him something." Oliver observed the scene, too confused to respond. His pragmatism had always made him despise what couldn't be explained. Rationally, but what he had just experienced defied any logic. "Come, Mr. Caldwell." Old Jack helped him to his feet. "The storm is getting worse. We need to get out of here before the creek overflows." The group left the cave, facing the rain. That still mercilessly punished them. Silver followed alongside Clara like a silent guardian. The girl walked with surprising confidence, as if she could see the path through the darkness. When they reached old Jack's small house, the closest one from there, the rancher lit the wood stove to warm the environment. Martha prepared tea with herbs she found in the modest pantry, while Clara sat near Oliver, who was still trembling under a rough blanket. "Why did the horse save me?" the businessman finally asked, his voice more vulnerable than he had ever allowed himself to show. Clara tilted her head, as she always did when reflecting on something. "Silver doesn't see people as good or bad," she answered with simplicity. "He sees the paths they can follow, and he saw that your path can still change, Oliver." The businessman remained silent, absorbing the girl's words. There was something in Clara's natural wisdom that deeply disconcerted him. Martha approached with a steaming mug. "Drink. It will help warm you up," she offered, her tone surprisingly gentle for someone who had confronted him moments before. Oliver accepted the drink, his fingers still trembling. The warmth of the tea spread through his body, bringing a feeling of comfort he hadn't experienced in a long time. "The document is lost," he said, more to himself than to the others. "Years of searching, all for nothing." "Maybe it's not lost," replied old Jack, sitting in a chair worn by time. "Maybe it's exactly where it should be, protected by the spring itself." Clara suddenly stood up, her face illuminated by an expression of understanding. "Water doesn't destroy, it transforms," she said with conviction. "The document isn't lost. It became part of the spring, just like the story it carries." Oliver frowned, unable to fully comprehend what the girl was saying, but something within him had changed. The experience of almost losing his life, of being saved by an animal that theoretically should fear him, had shaken his certainties. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice betraying uncertainty. "It depends on you," replied Martha. "The fact that you no longer have the document in your hands doesn't mean your moral obligation has disappeared. The spring remains everyone's heritage." The storm outside began to subside. The lightning became more distant, and the noise of the rain diminished to a soft drumming on the roof. The first light of morning began to filter through the cracks in the window. "I need to go home and think," said Oliver, standing up. The fatigue and traumatic experience had left visible marks on his always composed face. "Do that," agreed old Jack. "But remember, some decisions shape not only our future, but also who we are." Before leaving, Oliver stopped in front of Clara, who remained seated near the stove, caressing Silver, who rested with his head in her lap. "Thank you," he said, the word sounding strange on his lips, little accustomed to gratitude, "for sending the horse." Clara smiled, her unfocused eyes seeming to see something beyond the businessman's physical appearance. "It wasn't me who sent Silver. It was the water. It always finds a way." In the days that followed, Broken Ridge Springs slowly returned to normal after the great storm. Fallen trees were removed, fences rebuilt, roofs repaired, but something had changed in the air, in the atmosphere of the small town, as if an invisible balance had been restored. Oliver Caldwell wasn't seen for almost a week. He locked himself in the mansion, refusing visits and phone calls. When he finally reappeared, there was a subtle change in his posture, in his gaze. The ambition was still there, but tempered by something new: respect. On a sunny morning, he appeared at the town hall with an unexpected proposal. He wanted to invest in the town, not by buying land, but by establishing a foundation to protect the spring and develop sustainable projects that would benefit the entire community. "What made you change your mind?" asked the mayor, surprised by the transformation. Oliver hesitated, recalling the moments of desperation in the icy water, the feeling of helplessness, and then the inexplicable rescue. "Let's say I had a revealing experience," he finally answered. "I learned that some things cannot be possessed, only respected and shared." In the afternoon, he visited the house next to the church. Martha received him with a cautious expression that softened upon perceiving the change in the visitor. Clara was in the backyard, sitting under a jabuticaba tree, listening to the birds with a serene smile. "I came to thank you again," said Oliver, sitting beside the girl, "and to apologize for my greed." Clara turned her face toward him, her unfocused eyes shining with wisdom. "The water forgave you a long time ago. Now you need to forgive yourself." A year passed since the night of the great storm. Broken Ridge. Springs flourished under the spring sun, its cobblestone streets now cleaner, its old houses carefully restored to preserve their original charm. The central square had gained new benches and a renovated gazebo, where on Sundays the small-town band performed. The most significant change, however, was not in the physical structures but in the spirit of the community. A new awareness had awakened among the residents, a deeper understanding of the importance of the spring and the delicate balance that sustained their lives. That Sunday morning, a small crowd gathered in the vicinity of the spring for the inauguration of the Environmental Preservation Center, a project conceived by Oliver Caldwell and developed in partnership with the community. The businessman, wearing simple clothes instead of the expensive suits that were once his trademark, observed the Arvid scene with a mixture of pride and humility. By his side, Clara, now 8 years old, held his hand with the familiarity of someone who had found an unlikely friend. "You're nervous," observed the girl, feeling the tension in Oliver's fingers. "A little," he admitted with a smile. "I never thought I'd be here doing this." "The water always knew," replied Clara with her enigmatic wisdom. "That's why it sent Silver to save you." The white horse grazed peacefully a few meters away, under old Jack's watchful eye. In recent months, the animal had become a kind of mascot for the town, appearing freely in the most diverse places, always returning to the old rancher's pasture at nightfall. The ceremony began with the mayor's speech, followed by Martha, who spoke briefly about the historical and cultural importance of the spring to the community. When it was Oliver's turn, he surprised everyone with sincere and emotional words. "A year ago, I came to Broken Ridge Springs with a single goal, to acquire the spring lands for commercial exploitation," he confessed, provoking murmurs in the audience. "I was blinded by ambition, deaf to the wisdom of this land and its people. It took almost losing everything to finally see the true value of what we have here." His eyes met Clara's, who smiled as if she could see his transformation. "I learned that true progress isn't in possessing resources, but in preserving them for future generations. This preservation center isn't just a building or a project. It's a commitment, a promise we make to the land that sustains us and the water that gives us life." After the ceremony, while the guests explored the facilities of the center, Oliver, Clara, Martha, and old Jack walked to the spring. The crystalline water bubbled between the stones, creating a soft melody that seemed to cradle the world around them. "I still miss the original document," commented Oliver, observing the flow of the water. "It would be an important historical relic for the center." "The document fulfilled its purpose," replied Martha. "It protected the spring until we were ready to protect it by choice, not by obligation." Clara squatted by the water's edge, her fingers gently touching the fresh surface. "Water keeps memories," she said, her face illuminated by a smile. "If you listen carefully, you can hear the words of the document, along with all the stories the spring has witnessed." Silver approached, drinking from the crystalline water with elegant movements. The sun created silvery reflections on his white coat, giving him an almost mystical appearance. "You know, Clara," said Oliver after a moment of contemplation, "sometimes I think Silver isn't just an ordinary horse." Old Jack chuckled softly, caressing the animal's neck. "Nothing in this place is ordinary, Mr. Caldwell. That's the beauty of Broken Ridge Springs." On the way back to town, Clara walked ahead of the group, her steps as sure as always. Silver followed her closely, like a silent guardian. Suddenly the girl stopped, turning to the adults. "Do you remember the legend Grandma tells about the spring spirit that takes different forms to protect the water?" Martha smiled, exchanging meaningful looks with old Jack. "It's just an old story, my dear," she replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. Oliver observed the white horse, recalling the miraculous moment when the animal had appeared in the turbulent water to save him. Could it be possible? He shook his head, laughing at himself. A year ago, he would have dismissed such an idea as foolish superstition. Now, he wasn't so sure. In the following weeks, the Preservation Center became a meeting point for the community. Children from the school visited to learn about ecology. Farmers participated in workshops on sustainable practices, and researchers from nearby universities studied the unique biodiversity of the region. Oliver, who had previously planned to return to the busy life of the capital after concluding his business, found himself increasingly involved with the town and its inhabitants. He bought a simple house near the square, leaving the Caldwell mansion to be transformed into a historical museum for the region. On a sunny afternoon, he was walking through the square when he spotted Clara sitting on a bench, reading a Braille book, her agile fingers sliding over the pages. "Am I disturbing you?" he asked, sitting beside the girl. Clara smiled, closing the book. "I was waiting for you. Silver told me you would have important news today." Oliver shook his head, still, impressed by the girl's ability to know things she shouldn't. "Indeed, I do," he confirmed. "I received approval to expand the Preservation Center. We're going to start an educational program for all schools in the region." Clara's smile widened. "The water will be happy. It likes when children learn to respect it." That evening, as the sun lazily descended behind the mountains, painting the sky in orange hues, Clara, Oliver, Martha, and old Jack sat on the porch of the house next to the church. From afar they could hear Silver's whinny, followed by the tinkling of the church bells announcing the end of another day. "You know, Clara," said Oliver, contemplating the horizon, "when I arrived here, I thought this town was too small for my ambitions. Now I realize that it was I who was too small to comprehend the greatness of this place." The girl smiled, her unfocused eyes seeming to contemplate a world that only she could see. "The spring told me a secret," she said, with that melodious voice that seemed to carry echoes of ancient wisdom. "It said that sometimes you need to get lost to find the true path. You got lost in the water, Oliver, and found your way back to yourself." As night gently fell over Broken Ridge Springs, the lights of the houses lit up one by one like earthly stars. On the hilltop, Silver observed the town, his white figure standing out against the darkening sky. And in the depths of the earth, the spring continued its eternal song, guarding secrets and memories, weaving stories that flowed like water between generations. The singing water had found new guardians, and its legacy was secure for another generation, just as it always had been, just as it always would be, as long as there were hearts willing to listen to its melody. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us which city you're watching from.